should have the ability to start video now. There we go.
There we are. Woo!
Yeah, we made it. Welcome everybody. And I see that we've got some folks who've joined, and we're just figuring out some inevitable last minute technical glitches. I think the participant ticker is still going up. So we'll just get started in a second while I make sure my slides are prepared. Yeah, super excited for this webinar on community solar. Actually, it looks like we're good. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm gonna share my screen. Screen stop. All right, can you guys see my slides here?
Yep.
All right, great. Well, my name is Snyder, and I am program manager and one of two staff at the nonprofit Solar Oregon. We're super thrilled to have you all here today for this interactive panel discussion on community solar. There have been some recent updates to the program, and we're always excited to spread the word about community solar. We have three really awesome panelists who have a lot of collective experience and expertise in community solar in Oregon, and I'll be introducing them all in a little bit more detail in a second. Just an overview of what to expect tonight. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending out a recording of it in a follow-up email along with a survey to see how you enjoyed it. So please pay attention to that. I'm going to kick us off with a welcome, a little bit of a background on community solar, and then we're going to dive right into our discussion panel and hear from our guests about what's going on in community solar. We are going to have some time at the end for Q&A, so please consider this an interactive event. That's definitely part of the point of it. There is a Q&A box on your screen, Q&A button, and you'll be able to type your questions in there. Please put them in there and not in the chat, though. Pay attention to the chat for some links that we're going to drop that will point you to some resources to learn more. And also feel free to use the chat to just say hello. So first, a little bit of background on Solar Oregon. This is myself and Ari, who's also on the line supporting the webinar. And so we're a pretty small team, but we've been around for 40 years, a little over, as a nonprofit. And we do education, we do solar tours, and campaign-based work all about promoting the adoption of solar. Solar has certainly changed a lot in the last 40 years, and so have our programs. And so you can learn about a lot of different aspects and topics in solar. So pay attention to our website and social media. Oh, that's too bad. This slide is supposed to show an upcoming event that we have that I'll just talk about, and I'll make sure we can drop a link in the chat, which is to our annual meeting on December 9th, which also is when we're going to launch our vision for a community solar development campaign that Solar Oregon is undertaking and really starting to work on in 2022. So we're really excited about that. That's where we're kind of launching it. So I'm not going to share too many details right now about the campaign, but please join us. It's a free event. And I think that Ari just put the link in the chat. So go ahead and check that out. We're a member-based nonprofit. And so thank you so much to everybody who is a Solar Oregon member or who has supported Solar Oregon in the past. We definitely thrive on your support, and that is crucial in our ability to deliver our education and campaign-based programming. So please consider going to bit.ly/solardonate or to the Solar Oregon website and learning more about our nonprofit. And a huge thank you to Energy Trust of Oregon, which is an organization, a nonprofit that is supporting this webinar. And they've supported a lot of programming that Solar Oregon delivers. And Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit, and they have they serve 1.6 million people across Oregon and parts of Southwest Washington, and provide access to affordable energy incentives for solar energy efficiency and other great things. And so without further ado, I'm going to give a brief overview of community solar before we launch in. And I have a couple of polls because I love to hear where you are as an audience member who's joining us today. And so just learn a little bit about you. I'm going to launch this first poll. You should see a box on your screen. There are a couple of questions there. These are anonymized, so we won't know what your answer is, but we'll be able to look at the results here collectively. So the first question is, how familiar are you with Oregon's community solar program, ranging from I know nothing about community solar to I'm very familiar with community solar. Another question is, are you a stakeholder in a Oregon community solar project, such as a subscriber, developer, project manager, or other direct stakeholder? And if you don't know what any of that means, you're probably not, and you can click that option. I'll just give a minute here to get some results in. Great. It looks like we have just about everybody. I'll just give one more second. All right, we go ahead and end the poll, and just going to share the results here so we can see in the aggregate. Looks like we have a range of familiarity levels with community solar, which is really great. And most folks are not actively a stakeholder in a project, though we've got some subscribers and other types of stakeholders, which is really cool. Thank you so much for joining us. And I have just a couple more polls here. One is I would love to hear everybody's interests, what brought you here today. So this is a multiple choice. Feel free to select multiple, but what most interests you about community solar? Community solar is great because it provides energy savings for subscribers, is solar, so there's environmental benefits. And of course, there's a great solar workforce that is growing here in Oregon. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up in just a couple seconds. All right, I'll share these results. So it looks like probably the most folks are most interested in the environmental benefit, but it sounds like people are aware at least of some of the other benefits of community solar, which is really great. And then this last poll, I'm not going to share the results, but this is something that we use to get demographic information about our attendees, just to know who we're serving. And it's just something that we use internally to help us guide our programs. So please take a second, if you would, and fill that out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give just a couple more seconds and then wrap this last poll up, and then we'll get started learning about what community solar is. All right, go ahead and end that. Thank you so much. Community solar is something that I and Solar Oregon and a lot of folks in Oregon who work in energy and advocate for energy and equitable energy are really excited about. And community solar is different from how you might typically have heard of solar or a homeowner or business owner experiencing solar. And we often talk about net metered solar, which is where a home or business owner will own their own system and all the energy will go directly into the circuits in their home or business and power that. Community solar is a little bit different. That anybody can build a community solar system. Typically, it's a little bit larger, and it can be on a building or it can be a very large array out in outside of the city. And instead of that directly powering a home or business, people can subscribe to it. And that is the most common model for community solar. There's also another model that we may touch on because one of our guests has built a community-owned model. And but community solar is really about increasing access to solar. There are benefits to low-income stakeholders, and it's just another great model. It came online in Oregon in 2020. So that's a little bit of a background, and we are now going to launch directly into our panel. And I'm really thrilled to have the guests that we do today. So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce all three of you, and then we can kick off with some questions. So we have Ryan Cook, and Ryan is a program manager at the Energy Trust of Oregon. And as part of the third-party program administration team, Energy Trust supports the Oregon Public Utility Commission in implementing the Oregon Community Solar Program. Ryan works with solar developers, community groups, and others to progress through the development process and create solar projects that serve their communities. So welcome and thank you so much, Ryan, for being here. I'm going to introduce Sherry Billmark. And Sherry is program director at Community Energy Project, a nonprofit. And Community Energy Project is the low-income facilitator for the Oregon Community Solar Program and has an extensive background in serving low-income and frontline communities. Sherry is the lead representative for Community Energy Project in the program administration team with a focus on all things low-income, program design and delivery, policy recommendations, outreach, recruitment, and education for community-based organizations, project managers, and participants. A warm welcome to Sherry. Thanks so much for being here. And we also have Ray Sanchez Pescador, who is president at Solarize Rogue. And Ray was a scientist and project manager in the biotechnology and biopharma industry until he retired in 2010. In 2016, he became the team leader for the development of the Talent Clean Energy Action Plan, working with a group of volunteers. The City of Talent incorporated the elements of the Clean Energy Action Plan into their 20-year comprehensive plan in November of 2019. Ray started Solarize Rogue in 2017 to assist Talent and the Rogue Valley to transition to clean renewable energy by helping organizations, businesses, and residents figure out financially viable alternatives that allow them to access solar energy. Solarize Rogue launched the first participant-owned community solar project in Oregon, which is reaching completion and is expected to go live before the end of this year. Under his leadership, Solarize Rogue is looking to use their recently acquired experience to spearhead additional community solar projects in PAC territory. Welcome, Ray, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everybody's faces. First, I just wanted to let you guys have an opportunity to say a little bit more about who you are and what you do. And so, Ryan, I'm wondering if you would just tell us a little bit about Energy Trust and what you do as the program manager there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. So as you kind of already said in your introduction, Energy Trust is we're a nonprofit that's our role in the state energy ecosystem is to administer the state public purpose charge funds. So a little bit of every month's utility bill that you pay goes into kind of the good stuff fund to support energy efficiency and renewable energy in the state. And we work with the Oregon Public Utilities Commission to use that funding to implement the state's energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. And so through that work, we've obviously been super involved in the rooftop solar market and have operated a rooftop solar incentive program for a number of years. And through this program, we have a really great opportunity to support the other side of the solar market as well, which is community solar. So along with CEP and Sherry and also our other partner, Energy Solutions, we're kind of collectively the program administration team that works with the Oregon Public Utilities Commission to administer this program, which we're really excited about because it's a new way to bring solar energy to Oregonians and get a nice variety and mix in the solar market.
Awesome, thanks so much. And Sherry, can you tell us a little bit more about community energy projects and why you guys have been selected as the low-income facilitator for the community solar program?
Sure, yeah. So CEP has actually been around since 1979. We came out of the energy crisis of that era, and we provide a lot of direct services to frontline communities, mostly in Multnomah County. So there's weatherization. We have workshops on do-it-yourself weatherization or attic insulation, really simple stuff that renters can do, like plastic and windows, all the way up to insulating an attic. We teach about lead poisoning prevention. We have direct services for low-income seniors and people with disabilities. We go into homes and make energy upgrades. We do energy analysis. We're installing heat pump water heaters and all kinds of exciting things, really in that intersection between like low income, people of color, and efficiency upgrades, regardless of the kind of housing you're in. So community solar was pretty exciting to us. We started off as a stakeholder, just showing up at PUC events and making demands for what the 10% low income carve out would really look like. And then we were all part of this competitive process to be a part of the program administration team. And so now I get to put my money where my mouth was, from stakeholder into implementer, which has been really quite the experience. So now things are going well, and I'm really excited to report on where we're at and where we're going next today.
That's great, thank you. And Ray, your project is the first community-owned project in Oregon. What made you want to build this? And can you tell us a little bit more about your role?
Well, so first, Solarize Rogue is also a nonprofit. It's completely community driven. We have our staff are 100% volunteers. We don't get paid. And we're all retirees, as it happens. I mean, we're looking for younger people. So if there are any younger people coming out that want to join us, we're more than happy to take you. And so when SB 1547 came out, we got really excited because we thought, for the first time in the state of Oregon, people could actually pool their resources and then build a system and then benefit from the system that was remote, somewhere not on people's roofs, but it was installed somewhere else. And we saw that as a good opportunity. A lot of people that we had here in the Valley did not have appropriate roofs. They had the money to install solar panels, but they did not have the right roof, or they were renters, so that they couldn't do this. So we wanted to essentially create a model where the community actually owned the system. I mean, the PIM, as it came out later, pretty much focuses on what you mentioned, the subscriber-based model, and we have nothing against that, but we thought it'd be an interesting opportunity for people to actually participate in a project like this where they physically own the project. So it's not the developer that's owning the project, it's the community, the participants in the community that own the project. And we thought that was a very exciting opportunity for us. And with Ryan's help and everybody else, and then Sherry and everybody else in the ETO and a lot of different places, we've been able to make that a reality.
That's really great. And yeah, you touched a little bit there on the reasons why that kind of drove you to want to do that, and it's that people, didn't have good roofs, so they're renters. I'm wondering if all three of you could say a little bit more about, because I am so excited about community solar, and I have been for a while. I know a lot of people have been. I was not around when the original legislation passed, and I was not around and very involved in the rulemaking, though I know that was an extensive process. But I know that there's a spark of the vision of community solar, and I'm wondering just if you guys can expand a little bit more on that, the vision, and why it's so important to increase access to solar in the first place.
Yeah, I feel it really heavy because we were a stakeholder and there were a lot of stakeholders involved. And I feel that as low income facilitator, all of the equity-based stakeholders really put their faith in CEP to carry out this vision of real access and real ownership. And like Ray and I were in some spaces that ETO, Energy Trust, used to set up to talk about access to solar. So it's so funny for us to be in the same place again years later. And so much of it is the pieces that solar is something that everybody deserves to have access to. And the excitement about why everybody here, right? Why do you want solar? Like the pride and the excitement of being part of, the latest opportunities, the latest technology, being part of the solution. And there's so much around, that low income communities also have huge investment and are big believers, people of color, big believers in the climate crisis. They're the ones that bear the biggest burden. They want to be part of the change as well. And really a big piece of it is dividing that lack of access and lack of interest are two completely different things. And if we can create something that's truly accessible, we will see that the interest is there and people being able to invest and see how solar works for them. We don't have to choose between people and environment. We're all we are the environment. We're all able to have win-win-win situations again and again. And so that's a big piece of it for us, is to carry that spirit of who's been left out of the solar movements so far, and how can we start to change that with community solar in a big way.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, all of us at Solarize Rogue are in the senior population, so we feel a significant responsibility for the younger generations and trying to help them access solar energy. And so it was really critical for us to be able to figure out a financial model that would work. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing happens if it doesn't make financial sense for an individual. I mean, there are a lot of very, very bright and very savvy individuals who are very altruistic, and it doesn't matter if it makes financial sense or not. They will just dump the money in the places where they think is appropriate to dump it, and solar being one of them. And so, but for the rest of us, where disposable income is not necessarily that available, we wanted to make sure that we could find a way for those individuals to participate. And as Ryan and everybody else that is involved in the industry will tell you, it costs a lot less on a per panel basis to build a large system than it is to build solar panels on your roof. I mean, by several fold. I mean, it could be as much as 70% less expensive to participate in a community solar project than to install solar panels on your roof. So by bringing down the price of entry for a lot more people, in particular in areas that are not urban. I mean, we're not talking about Portland or Eugene. We're talking about Southern Oregon, Eastern Oregon, where the average income is not very much. You have to be able to provide people an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I really do want to participate in this. I really do believe in this, but I just don't have the financial means. So I think it's really up to us, those of us who have these visions of a better world for tomorrow, to figure out ways to provide the tools for people to participate in this kind of a revolution, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and I would echo a lot of what Sherry and Ray just said. I think that for our part at Energy Trust, I guess if we go back to why this program exists, we at ETO have been supporting the rooftop solar market in Oregon for a long time. But we know also that not everyone can participate in rooftop solar. To participate in rooftop solar, you need to have control of your roof. So if you're a renter or otherwise don't control the roof of your building, you can't really put solar on it. If you don't have upfront capital or access to upfront capital, then rooftop solar can be pretty challenging. And then just like pure like sites, like is there a shady elm tree in your backyard, can make rooftop solar pretty challenging as well. So our mission at Energy Trust is clean, affordable energy for everyone. And this is a program that really helps us deliver on that mission because it is a program that everyone can access. And that's really important. And not only can everyone access, but there's also pieces of the program built in to specifically target communities that have been underserved historically. Like we have 10% of each project is reserved for low-income customers. At Energy Trust, we've always been doing this work, but now we have a mandate for this work, which we're really excited about from House Bill 3141, that 25% of our renewables funding needs to be dedicated to low-income customers. And there's a lot of different programs out there, different ways to serve low-income customers, but this is a really important arrow in the quiver because this is a great program to slot in folks who are just renting and have a hard way to access solar. This is a program that's really custom made for a demographic that's had a really hard time participating in the market. So that's why we're pretty excited about it.
That's great. And so I know a lot of people who are joining are curious, what are the updates? I think to make that relevant, how's the first year plus been of community solar? What's that looked like? I guess all three of you and Ryan, I don't know if you wanted to set the stage there.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start with some of the facts and figures. So as a program, we have 160 megawatts of solar capacity to operate, and that's kind of split in two. The first half is what we call Tier 1, about 80 megawatts of solar that got released back in 2020. And Tier 2, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, that's the next 80 megawatts that's just being added to the program right now. So of that first 80 megawatts that got released about a year and a half ago, 75% of it is what we call the general market portion of the program. And this is kind of characterized by a lot of large megawatt scale projects that are kind of mass market. Go out, find a solar developer that's got a project that you like and sign up to subscribe to it. And then 25% of the program is what we call the carve out. And this is for projects that are either small or that have real community ownership control over the project. So this is the project that Ray's going to talk about in a minute, kind of falls squarely within the carve out part of the program. So we really do kind of operate two different programs simultaneously. One for kind of like the meat and potatoes mass market stuff, and one for the more kind of community-based, community-focused projects. Our general market capacity was exhausted on day one in Portland General Electric, and as soon as they could build the projects and get them through interconnection to Pacific Power. Those projects are starting to come online now. There's still a lot of open spots remaining. Our PGE projects I would say is about half subscribed. We've got 4 projects operational now. So we're starting to see that first cohort of projects really start generating power for their subscribers, because it does take about a year and a half to build a project of that scale. Our PAC projects, Pacific Power, will probably come online over the course of next year. And then there's one project out in Idaho Power, service territory in Ontario, that'll be coming on probably next year as well. And then in the carve out, so while we've had this kind of immense interest in the general market portion of the program, the carve out project's been a relatively few and far between. It's obviously a lot more difficult to go the small scale community focused way. The economics aren't as easy there, which I'm sure Ray can tell us about. So a lot of what we've built into the program in the next tier of the program is really targeted at helping make those projects succeed. But right now, we're really excited about seeing our first subscribers actually getting the benefits of solar on their utility bills, and seeing that grow over the next couple of months.
Yeah, Ray or Sherry, both of you, in your tier 1 experience, just to kind of set the stage for describing the specific changes in tier 2, what's been the experience? I know that it launched during the pandemic. How has that and other factors of the program affected you?
Well, it's been a fantastic experience, and I think some people would call me masochist because I'm calling it a fantastic experience. But it's been great. I mean, quite frankly, it's been a very educational experience. I mean, this is a new program in the state at the whole state level. So it was to be expected that the first people to go through the process were going to have some hiccups, and we're all going through that. So as it was, yes, we did experience some hiccups, and not just from us, that we were complete neophytes into, I mean, none of us, as you've seen, none of us has experience in solar or even electricity or anything else like that. So we're all just retirees from other industries. So we undertook this knowing that there was a heck of a lot that we didn't know. And kudos to Ryan, who put up with us for the past year and a half, guiding us through and educating us and telling us, you know, that's really not the way that it's supposed to go. You really need to go this way. And it's like, okay, we got to go this way. But everybody else had the same problems. I mean, Pacific Power had the same problems. This is a utility that we deal with. New process, they weren't used to dealing with our types of projects, and they were not necessarily completely familiar with what to do with our projects. We brought some interesting challenges to the PUC and the Program Administrator Office because we were the first community-owned project in the state, and nobody had really thought about these. I mean, if you look at the PIM 1.0 that I will call it, and Brian will talk about PIM 2.0, the PIM only mentions owner-based projects in one sentence in the, I can't remember how many pages the PIM has, but a lot of them. And so it was not something that was really thought of as an alternative. And so with Ryan's help, we had to push a rod through a square hole. And fortunately, with his help and flexibility from everybody involved, we were able to get it through. The process, you know, as I said, we had to work a few kinks, but all the people involved, from the utility, from ETO, from the PUC, from the program administration, everybody was fantastic. And so in that sense, I call it a great experience. The process, yeah, it's to be expected.
Yeah, so with us, it's been really interesting because, you know, there's a lot of stakeholders that have been at the table that all have like different lenses through which they view this program and what they want to get out of it. Sometimes I feel like, you know, we all set out to build a horse and we ended up with kind of a camel because we just had a lot of, you know, different visions for what community solar could look like. And, you know, two big things happened. Yeah, COVID hit, and COVID hit the communities we're trying to serve the hardest. And that is the community that, you know, faced the most financial burden, the most actual loss in death, the most, the digital divide, meaning that they don't have access to the internet the way that higher income people do, et cetera, et cetera. And so we launched, and COVID hit our shores like basically the same month. It came to us being ready to do recruitment. I think the other big piece, and it was the larger piece, in my opinion, was that this program doesn't exist in a vacuum. So while CEP is, you know, we're 1/3 of the program administrative team, and then there's the PUC, and there's utilities, and there's solar developers. And, you know, we had some real issues in the program. The biggest one being that if somebody was not able to pay their utility bill in full, it put them in arrears to entities, to the utility and to the solar program. And this is, of course, a huge issue with low income folks who are less likely to be able to pay their bills in full, and doubled with COVID, where deep debt, people were in really, really deep debt from unemployment, et cetera. And so it really created some opportunities for us to really push hard on the PUC and push hard on utilities to be like, these are things that have to change. Like, you can see right here exactly how vulnerable these groups of people are. This isn't theory, this is fact. And being the only equity voice in spaces that are not used to equity conversations is always an interesting challenge, and it was a long haul. So it took us about 18 months to resolve that issue just around partial payments, because things move slowly. And once it was resolved, though, we did a campaign and had one campaign with PGE and had 500 calls in a month of huge interest from low-income folks wanting to take part in the program. And it was just a perfect example of barrier removed, interest fills the gap. And so we're really happy to have that resolved. We're really happy that now a lot of these players, these big decision makers, are taking equity a lot more seriously and are actually not just listening, but are also offering and contributing solutions to problems. And that's really huge. It was not like that when CEP was a stakeholder, and we had to prove every single thing. Where's a paper on that? We're like, what? Like really basic stuff. And how can you provide evidence that this would work if you want to be the first one to do it? So now that space is so different. There's much more opportunity, much more flexibility and openness to trying new things and letting us be a leader, I think, across the country when it comes to community solar. I really want this to be a model that other states can utilize as well and say, hey, you know, bring in I think the program would look very different if there was no low income facilitator. I think it would look very, very different. I think it would for low income folks, because, you know, we just have different kinds of priorities. So I'm really pleased. I'm really proud of like what we've been able to accomplish and how the partners we've been working with have really become really helpful at getting stuff done and really effective and really creative. And there's so much intelligence and passion with partners. That's been really exciting.
And I just want to second what Sherry has said and give an example of how it directly impacted us in our small little project. Not only were we hit by COVID, as many of you know, the Rogue Valley was hit by the Almeda fire. And the Almeda fire destroyed a third of Talent and half of the city of Phoenix. And so mostly low-income families. And when we started recruiting for low-income families, we still had the issue of, no, you cannot be in arrears with a utility. Everybody had lost not only their jobs, but their houses as well. So it was very difficult for us to actually enroll low-income families into our project until Sherry and her team were able to remove that barrier, give us some clarity, and then all of a sudden we were able to do that. So we wouldn't have been able to do it without Sherry and her team's work.
Well, what's nice too, as CEP is so used to working with resources, we were able to connect the low-income folks in arrears to relief programs to get their debts wiped out, which was also just another one of those pieces where like, oh, we can put on our other hat of additional resources that puzzle together and fit beautifully with community solar. Because now energy assistance and community solar really, really fit together really nicely.
That's great. Yeah, it's really great to hear these stories, especially since I mean, COVID added so many stressors to so many things, and launching a new program that is new, so new just on its own. And then in the novelty of COVID and all of that chaos too. It's really great to hear that those barriers were, you know, have been removed. And so let's talk specifics. What is new in community solar, and what was this process at the PUC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can chat about that. So the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, has approved the next tier of program capacity. They made that decision this September, excuse me. And so went through a public planning process, a lot of stakeholder input that resulted both in expansion of the program, so effectively doubling the size from the first 80 megawatts that we had in the program, and also making a few tweaks to the program rules that are pretty significant. The first one of those is it really put the emphasis on residential participation in the program. Our participation to date has had a lot of participation from municipalities, from school districts, from universities, entities that have climate targets and see this as a really attractive program to help meet those, which we think is great. But we also want to make sure that there's really healthy and that primarily this is a program that serves residential customers who haven't had options to participate in solar to date. So the next year of the program will really put an emphasis on residential participation, make sure that it's the primary sector being served by the program. It's also going to incentivize projects to target residential customers, because they'll be able to, those customers will receive a higher bill credit rate through the program, which means that they'll be able to provide more revenue to the projects in return. So it's kind of playing with the economics to make sure that our projects are incentives are aligned with what our policy objectives are. In tandem with that, one other thing that's exciting is we're doubling the level of savings that low-income customers get through the program, because we see that as a really important policy outcome for the program. And then to help make sure that we have more community-based projects participating in a carve-out, we're also tweaking a number of the rules. Those haven't been approved yet. They should get approved in the next 2 months, I think, to kind of enable more partnerships between community groups and solar developers. Because we're learning from our community groups that, hey, we're really good at reaching out to the community, getting folks involved in the project. We're not solar developers. We don't want to be the ones that are managing the project in the long term. So we're creating a pathway for projects that are kind of taking advantage of unique partnerships between a community group that's really connected to the community, bring subscribers into a project, and a traditional solar developer whose expertise is in building the solar project and managing the solar project, to provide that as a pathway to fill up some of our carve-out capacity. So with these tweaks, we're pretty excited to see what happens with the next year of the program.
That's great. Thanks for that overview. And Sherry, how might these impacts? And I see a couple of questions coming out in the chat about what is doubling the savings potential for low-income folks. What is that, and how is that going to impact your work and the folks who actually subscribe?
So currently, part of the carve out for low-income folks is they're still paying a subscription fee. And that subscription fee is going to vary based on the size of your subscription. So if you use more energy per year, you're going to need a bigger subscription to offset your electrical load. So with low-income folks, there's a minimum subscription discount of 20%. So they're seeing a 20% subscription discount, and that saves about 10 to 14% annually on electric bills for low-income folks. Also, the bills are never allowed to increase even in like December, January, February, when there's no sun. And that's a piece, those months are really hard on low-income folks in general. So we didn't want to see bills go up. So there are these kinds of guards in there to keep that from happening. In tier 2, it's going to be a 40% subscription discount. So we're going to see increased annual savings. Instead of it being 10 to 14%, it'll be a little bit more than double because of some of the math and baseline fees and stuff like that. I won't get into that level of weeds, but it's going to actually bring us to where CEP, when we were a stakeholder, and then when we became low-income facilitator, we got together a lot of experts on income, equity, and housing to say what is the ideal savings range. So this brings us way closer to what we were hoping for. We were saying we'd like to see 25, 30% discounts on electric bills. This is levels that people won't need energy. A lot of people can get off of energy assistance, and it's going to have this positive trickle down effect. We actually have a sheet I can drop in chat that if you're curious and you want to see how much is a subscription, how much is savings for low-income folks, you can see the math and how, as the subscription gets bigger, what you can expect from that.
Yeah, please do drop that in the chat.
Yeah, I will do so now.
And Ray, any expected changes or updates to the program that you're most excited about?
Well, one of the biggest changes that the program has actually implemented is that there is going to be what is called a 2% escalator into the fees that Pacific Power pays for the energy that is produced in the solar systems. Again, as we talked earlier, the smaller the system, the harder it is to make these projects pencil in. It's just too expensive. And so by having a fixed price of energy throughout 20 years, that essentially added burden to the community solar project, while the cost of energy is going up 3% a year. And so that just made the numbers really not add up, financially speaking. So now that the PUC has approved this 2% escalator, I think they've approved it, and Ryan will be confirming that, this 2% escalator starting in 2023, then the rate that you're going to see paid by the utilities for the energy is going to be 2% higher than in 2023 than it was in 2022, and it'll just keep going up every year. And so that is a huge benefit for smaller projects that need all the help they can get. I think the other thing that has been very, very successful, at least from our perspective, has been the Energy Trust of Oregon's focus on helping projects financially with very beneficial grants to make these projects a success. And so these projects would not be able to take off if anybody with any financial expertise would look at them, they'd say this is not really a project that you want to get into, other than for altruistic reasons, right? Nobody's, I mean, even with the grants from ETO, nobody's going to make money out of these community solar projects unless you're a large developer. But the small projects are all essentially nonprofits. And so without the help of organizations like ETO and the utilities and anybody else in the community, we wouldn't be seeing these projects. And one of the reasons why we have so few small projects on the queue is because it is financially difficult to figure out how to make them work.
That's great. And yeah, that's great that the escalator was added. And that is a little bit of a technical concept, but just to clarify for folks in case there's any confusion, that's an escalator that the utility pays to the solar, but that's not an escalator that gets passed on to the subscribers, right? If anything, that improves the ability to provide reasonable subscription fees.
Right, that's right. That means that the bill credits that you get for participating, the value of those will increase year over year, which improves the value proposition for the project, both for subscribers and also makes it more attractive for projects to go and find those residential customers.
That's great. So a lot of exciting changes, and it's really great to hear how the program's evolving. We have 13 minutes, and I want to save some time for Q&A, which it looks like I haven't looked extensively, but looks like we've got some good engagement in the chat and some good questions. But for the audience, for anybody who's listening, there are different ways to be involved in a community solar project, right? So I'm curious for subscribers, for people who might be curious about following your footsteps, Ray, and or a community that wants to have, you know, a system for themselves. Are there resources? What can you tell folks who might want to get involved in community solar?
Well, the first thing that we did was to surround ourselves with a bunch of experts, people who have been doing this for a while, starting with Sustainable Northwest, continuing with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and then Brian Cook and his team with the Energy Trust of Oregon. Anybody else that would listen. In fact, several developers actually, large developers actually helped us trying to make sense of what's going on. So I'll tell you, if you're looking at the PIM, if you're looking at this process, if you're looking to build something that is larger than what you're going to be building on your own house, it is bloody scary. All right. The moment that anybody tells you that you have to have a conversation and perhaps even a discussion with a utility, they're like, no. I mean, that's just well beyond our pay grade. Well, it's well beyond my pay grade too, but the difference with this is that I'm really, really stubborn and I don't necessarily take no for an answer. So it's folks at the utilities are very amenable to talking with you. They just need to hear from you. And so it's important that if you want to start a project like this, that you don't feel completely overwhelmed. There is a lot of help available to you, and Solarize Rogue will be more than happy to just, you know, talk with you and help you figure out what it is that you want to do and point you in the right direction. But as I said, there are many nonprofit organizations out there that can help you understand what the process is. If you've never built a community solar system or a solar system at all, it's really important that you surround yourself with people, and then don't give up. It's really important. There are 25,000 reasons why we could have given up on our project. Ryan knows every single one of them. But we didn't. And we just worked with whomever we had to work with to figure out a way around the process in some cases and just make it happen. So it's really important that you maintain your dedication, your devotion to making your project a reality. It'll happen.
For swinging to the opposite end of the pendulum is if you are lower income and want to take advantage of the 10% carve out, the piece is really just to contact Community Energy Project. I'll drop the link to the solar website in here. So it's like whether you're low income or not, and you want to see, like, I want to see what it's like to be a subscriber. What would that cost me? What would my savings be like? You can find the people who can give you those answers. If you are low income, you can make an appointment online. You can call us. CEP walks every person through the process as part of income verification. And we have charts where, like, here's what you can save depending on your size. We come back to you with how big your subscription is, and really we're like a Q&A like line for all low income folks. And so that part we've tried to make as simple as possible. It's very time consuming, but depending on where people are at, sometimes we're on the phone with them for 5 minutes and they only have a few questions. I'm like, yeah, sign me up. That's sweet. We've done everything we can to eliminate risk and to have something desirable. And some folks have a lot of questions, and we're on the phone with them for an hour. So as long as it takes for people to feel comfortable to make a decision, that's what it is like with us.
And I would say that for folks who just want to sign up and get involved in the program, you can visit us at OregonCSP.org and see what projects are actively recruiting in your area. That list does update over time. So I think that right now a lot of our PGE projects are getting close to capacity. There's probably still a few spots left. Our Pacific Power projects are going to be coming online and starting to recruit customers pretty soon. And then soon we'll have a lot more capacity in both utility areas when the next tier opens up. So do check back. And then if you're interested in doing a community-based project similar to what Ray put together, we are your best resource. So drop us a line. We're happy to talk you through the process. And then I should say we're your second best resource. The direct experience of Ray and other folks that are doing this is your best resource. So we're also happy to plug you into the network of folks that are working on this across the state.
That's great. Thank you guys so much for this whole conversation. I want to move us into some Q&A. And I'm going to start. It looks like we had a lot of questions come in on the chat. I'm going to start with one that's in the Q&A box. And we're going to go through and try to answer as many as we can up until the hour. We've got 7 minutes here. And if you have additional questions, again, please look for the recording and the follow-up email, and that'll be a good contact point for you. So Edward Louis in the chat, the Q&A, excuse me, has asked, I'm hoping to hear about the cost of community solar versus the savings with some numbers. Is it possible to improve the cost savings? For example, he gives a number here, 0.11 dollars per kilowatt hour, but the cost is 0.10 kilowatt hours plus current monthly fees of this many cents, including this many cents month program administration fee. So I think that Edward's looking for some hard numbers, and I don't know if you guys have that information, but maybe we can dive a little bit more into how all the money pencils out.
Yeah, I can speak to this. So for a non-low income customer, because low income customers get required discounts, as Sherry's been talking about, most of our projects are offering around a 5% discount. So if the bill credit rate that a customer receives is, say, 10 cents per kilowatt hour, then those projects will be charging customers around, say, 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So there's a slight savings that a customer receives. The specific project, I recognize these numbers, the one that you cited, a number of our projects have elected to pay program fees on behalf of their subscribers. And I believe that that's the project that you're citing has elected to do that. Unfortunately, our project finder doesn't take that into account in what the expected savings are. So that's a bug that we need to fix. And but to the point that you're asking, what's the expected savings you can get? If you participate in the program, you can expect to get a slight savings, around 5% on what the rate that you're paying your project manager would be. Because we want you to size a little bit conservatively, just so you don't subscribe to more than you can use, and because the program doesn't offset certain fixed charges on your bill. then that 5% bill rate savings translates to like a slight, like 3-ish% bill savings. So this isn't a program that's going to save you a ton of money, but this is going to provide you an incentive to go solar, to get your power from a dedicated local solar project. And we think that's a pretty good incentive for a lot of folks to participate.
I think I'll just add to what Ryan said, and if you're really now talking about a community-owned project, I mean, there are additional savings to be achieved there by the time that you end up paying yourself back for the original investment that you've made in the solar panels. From that point forward, your energy is essentially free. Not totally, because you get paid a certain amount by the utility for that energy, but it's essentially energy that you're generating, so you're not having to pay for that energy as well. Yes, there are a few more administrative fees and charges that go through that, but at the end of the day, you're generating your own power and benefit from that.
Great. And thanks for folks who are putting their questions in the Q&A. If you did ask a question in the chat and you want to make sure it gets answered, I'm going to prioritize the ones in the Q&A box, just because we had so many in the chat. I think some of those were answered in the chat as well. So this next question is from Jason Henry, and it is, if the project develops surplus energy, can the energy be bundled and sold as REC / renewable energy credits? Would that be more revenue to support the program?
Yeah, so we think that it's really important that this is a program that provides access to renewable energy to subscribers. And that means that it's important that the subscribers get the RECs. So the program requires that the projects retire renewable energy credits on behalf of the folks that are participating in the program and paying the subscription fee to access the program. However, if there is some portion of the project that's not subscribed, the project can do what they will with those RECs. But the majority of the energy that's produced, the RECs are intended to be retired on behalf of the participants, and that's so that if you're participating in the program, you can truly, honestly say that you're being empowered by renewable energy.
That's great. And another question from Edward Louis. Can people pay, in other words, buy panels into a big solar system that uses their church land and then get the net metering by wire / virtual net metering for the panels they purchased?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So this program would definitely work for that sort of model. If there's a large plot of land or a large roof, like a church roof or any other kind of roof that looks to be a good site for solar, but there's not necessarily enough load on the building to use the solar, then you can absolutely enter that project into the program and enroll your community members in the program and have them be receiving the credits. And I think that one thing that's exciting about this next tier of the program is that we're, I think, really opening the door for partnerships between just community groups that have that land but don't necessarily want to manage the project, and find a way to allow them to partner with solar developers to do all the kind of traditional development work.
Great. And of course, Sherry and Ray, no need to add on, but if you want to. All right, we've got a question here from Janet. How is low income defined?
Great question. Low income is 80% SMI, or state median income. And this is a spot, I dropped a link directly to the low income page that can give a chart if you want to see how that's defined. And it was chosen, it's kind of a state median income was chosen for easy outreach across the state, but also it gives rural communities a bit of an advantage because area median income drops the income for poor communities that have a lot more poverty. So we want to see a lot of rural participation in the program as well.
Great, thanks. And we're right at 7, so we got one more question in the Q&A box. One more just rolled in. Well, let's try to answer at least this one, and I'll see if you guys want to answer the second one. Jason asks, if there is capacity on a project, is it possible to install EV charging to increase revenue?
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to install the EV charging right at the site because all the power produced by the project would have to go to the subscribers. But you absolutely, if you're putting an EV charger in your home, or if there was a site that had charging, you can absolutely enroll that site in a project the same way that you would your own any other site in the program. We do have a number of participants that are doing that, and that way when they charge their EV in their house, then they're able to say, "Oh, my EV runs on community solar as well."
That's great. And we got one more question, which I think is a quick one, so I'm just going to ask it. Can you get a federal tax credit from the solar panels purchased and were installed into a community solar system? I believe this is asking, can a subscriber get that?
Yeah, so 99% of the time, no, because the federal investment tax credit can be claimed by the folks that are installing and owning the project. So if you're putting on your roof, then you get the investment tax credit. And in most of these cases, the solar developer is paying the upfront cost of the project, so they're claiming the ITC, and that's the value that's kind of baked into the rate you pay. The 1% is Ray in Ray's project, because the participants in the project are also the owners. Then Ray has worked out a way to allow them to claim the ITC for their project.
Ray, a man of many wonders. Great, thank you. We're going to wrap it up here. I know we have some questions that have been unanswered in the chat, but please feel free to get in touch after the webinar. Please look for the link and the follow-up email. And if there are questions, we can try to answer them after the webinar. Thank you so much to our three panelists. It's really great to have you guys here to have your bird's eye view on what's going on in the program. And just another quick reminder that Solar Oregon has our annual meeting coming up, and we are going to be working on some community solar stuff. So please come join us on December 9th. It's a free virtual event, and we'll have a silent auction, and it should be a lot of fun. Thanks again, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us and coming to learn about community solar.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.